It was a quiet night in downtown Los Angeles, the kind of night where the city finally exhales after a long day. Neon signs flickered outside a small corner bar called Saints and Sinners, a place known for soft jazz, dim lights, and the man who owned it, Keanu Reeves. He wasn't there as a celebrity tonight. No cameras, no bodyguards, no script. Just a man wiping glasses, humming to himself, occasionally glancing at the old piano in the corner. His bar was nearly empty. A couple of regulars sat at one end, chatting quietly over whiskey. Rain tapped against the windows like an unfinished song. The bell above the door jingled, softly at first, then a bit louder as the door swung open. Keanu looked up. A woman stood in the doorway, drenched from the rain. Her hair clung to her face, her hands trembling as she held her coat tight around her. It took him a second to notice she was pregnant, clearly in her final months. Water dripped from her shoes, pooling on the wooden floor. "Hey," Keanu said gently, setting the glass aside. "Come in, you're soaking wet." She didn't respond right away. Her eyes darted toward the street as if she feared someone might appear any second. Then slowly she stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Her breathing was shallow, her lips pale. Keanu grabbed a towel from behind the counter and handed it to her. "Here, sit down. You're safe here." She hesitated before whispering, I need help." Her voice cracked into a mixture of fear and exhaustion. Keanu's calm expression softened even more. "Okay," he said quietly. "You're in the right place." He guided her to a stool near the corner of the bar, the one closest to the heater. She winced slightly as she sat, placing a protective hand over her stomach. Keanu poured her a glass of water. "Here, drink slowly." The woman took a sip, her hands shaking so hard the glass nearly slipped. "Thank you," she murmured. Outside, thunder rolled like distant drums. Inside, the jazz stopped. The old record player had reached its end. For a moment, the only sound was the rain and her uneven breathing. Keanu leaned on the counter, his voice calm but firm. "Tell me what's wrong." She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. "They're looking for me," she whispered. "Please, don't let them find me." A chill ran through the quiet room. The two regulars glanced up from their drinks, sensing the tension. Keanu's brow furrowed slightly, but his tone stayed gentle. "Who's looking for you?" She shook her head. "I can't. If I say it out loud, they'll know." Keanu's eyes met hers. Steady, kind, unshaken. "Whoever you're running from," he said softly, "they'll have to go through me first." Hook line. But what she whispered next changed everything that night. Keanu's eyes flicked toward the window. The rain distorted the neon lights outside, turning them into trembling streaks of color. He saw nothing unusual, just empty streets, wet pavement, and the faint reflection of his own silhouette in the glass. "Who's outside?" he asked softly. The woman's breathing quickened. "He followed me here," she said, her voice shaking. "I thought I lost him, but he never stops. He said if I ever ran again, he'd—" She stopped herself, gripping the edge of the counter. "Please, I can't go back." Keanu moved around the bar and crouched beside her, speaking quietly but firmly. "Hey, you're safe now. No one's getting to you while you're in here, all right?" She nodded, but her eyes darted toward the door again. Keanu stood up, checked the lock, and flipped the closed sign. Then he turned the dimmer down on the lights. The bar grew warmer, softer, calmer. "What's your name?" he asked. "Claire," she whispered. "Okay, Claire. Do you have a phone?" "Someone we can call?" She shook her head. He took it. "He checks everything I do. I just wanted to get away, even for one night." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I didn't know where to go, so I just walked. And then I saw your bar." Keanu gave a faint smile. "Well, you picked the right one." The regulars at the corner exchanged glances. One of them, an older man with a gruff voice, leaned over and muttered, "You sure you want to get involved, boss? Could be trouble." Keanu looked at him, calm but firm. "Trouble's already here, Hank. We just decide what kind of people we want to be when it walks through the door." Hank didn't argue after that. Keanu turned back to Claire. "You said he's following you. Do you think he knows where you are now?" "I don't know," she said, trembling. "He's always watching. I can't sleep. I can't even think straight anymore." Keanu poured her a cup of warm tea and set it in front of her. "Drink this. Slow your breathing. You need strength, not fear." For the first time that night, she exhaled. A shaky, fragile sound that seemed to release weeks of pent-up panic. The warmth of the tea steadied her hands just enough to take another sip. Then she looked up and whispered, "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Keanu smiled faintly, his tone quiet but weighted with truth. "I've been where you are, Claire. Lost, scared, trying to find one person who won't walk away." He shrugged. "Tonight, that's me." Her lip quivered as she whispered, "Thank you." Outside, a car engine growled faintly, just enough to make Claire flinch. Keanu's eyes narrowed toward the sound. Something told him this wasn't over. If a stranger ran into your place asking for help, would you trust them or call the police? Comment below. And tell us which city and country you're watching from. We love knowing where our stories reach. The soft hum of the bar's refrigerator was suddenly interrupted by a low rumble outside, the unmistakable sound of a car pulling up. Tires hissed against the wet pavement, headlights slicing through the misted glass. Claire's eyes widened. Her fingers clutched Keanu's sleeve. "That's his car," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He found me." Keanu didn't ask questions. He glanced toward the door, steady, calm, unreadable, then moved behind the counter and quietly flipped off the neon open sign. The bar dimmed even further, shadows stretching across the floor. "Stay here," he said softly. "Don't move until I say so." Claire's breathing turned shallow. She looked toward the window, heart racing. The car idled for a few seconds, then the sound of a door opening echoed faintly through the rain. Boots hit the ground. Heavy, deliberate steps. Inside, the two regulars exchanged worried looks. Hank muttered, "That must be him." Keanu didn't respond. He moved toward the door and positioned himself just inside the entryway, where he could see without being seen. Through the glass, a large figure was approaching, shoulders hunched, head lowered, jacket soaked. Even from inside, Keanu could sense the anger radiating off him like heat. The man reached the door and yanked it open so hard the bell above it clanged. Rain swept in behind him. His eyes scanned the room, sharp and cold. He was breathing heavily, jaw clenched. "Where is she?" he barked. Keanu stood still behind the bar, his expression calm but alert. "Can I help you?" "Don't play dumb," the man growled. "A woman came in here a few minutes ago, pregnant, scared, wearing a brown coat." "Where is she?" Claire tried to sink lower in her seat, hiding behind the counter. Keanu's tone was even, steady. "You should lower your voice. You're scaring my customers." The man stepped closer, rain dripping from his jacket. "I'm not leaving without her." Hank stood up slightly from his stool, but Keanu gave him a subtle gesture. "Stay down." Then Keanu took one slow step forward. "You might want to calm down," he said quietly. "You're in a public place." The man's eyes narrowed. "Do you know who you're talking to?" Keanu didn't flinch. "Do you?" For a moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the rain and the soft hum of the lights. The man's glare darted around the bar, searching, calculating. Then his eyes locked on something behind the counter, the edge of Claire's coat. "There you are," he shouted, taking a step forward. Before he could move further, Keanu placed himself between them. His tone was still calm, but his stance shifted, protective, grounded. "She's not going anywhere with you," Keanu said. "She's my wife." The man snapped. "You think you can hide her from me?" Keanu's expression hardened slightly. "If you loved her, she wouldn't be afraid of you." The man's fists clenched. For a split second, everyone in the bar held their breath, unsure if he would swing. Claire whispered through tears, "Please, don't do this here." Keanu's eyes never left the man. "You need to leave," he said, voice low but unshakable. The man sneered, leaning forward. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Keanu's reply came like a whisper wrapped in steel. "Neither do you." Outside, thunder cracked, loud and sudden, as if the sky itself punctuated the moment. The tension was unbearable. Every second stretched like an eternity. Then for a brief instant, no one moved. The confrontation had only begun. If you were standing there as a bystander, would you step in or stay quiet? Type your answer in the comments. For a long, heavy moment, the only sound in the bar was the rain hammering the windows. Keanu stood motionless, his body angled between Claire and the man now seething in front of him. The stranger's jaw flexed with anger. "You think hiding behind a counter is going to stop me?" he hissed. Keanu didn't respond. He just watched, steady, calculating. The way a man who's seen too much violence learns to avoid it until there's no other choice. Claire's trembling hand clutched the bar edge. Please, she whispered. Just let me go. The man's glare snapped toward her voice. You promised me you'd never run again. Her voice broke. You promised you'd change. That sentence, raw and trembling, hung in the air like broken glass. Even the old man Hank lowered his eyes. The stranger laughed coldly. Change? You made me like this, Claire. You and that kid ruined my life. Before he could finish, Keanu's voice cut through the air, calm, precise. Stop talking. The man turned sharply, anger flashing. What did you just say? Keanu's tone stayed even, but his eyes had turned colder. I said stop talking. You've said enough. A silence fell. The kind of silence that vibrates with danger. The man's lip curled. Who do you think you are, huh? Some kind of hero? Keanu's expression didn't change. No, just someone who doesn't like bullies. The man took another step forward. Keanu didn't move. He simply shifted his weight slightly, grounding himself. Every muscle in the room tensed. From a corner table, one of the younger customers, a college kid, slowly pulled out his phone and started recording. Another followed. Soon, several bystanders had their cameras up, capturing what was unfolding. The stranger noticed. Stop filming, he shouted, his voice cracking with rage. No one stopped. He turned back to Keanu. Move, now! Keanu's reply came quiet, almost compassionate. She's terrified of you. You need to walk out that door before you make this worse for yourself. The man took another step, his hand brushing against his jacket pocket. For the first time, the atmosphere shifted from tense to dangerous. Keanu's voice dropped lower, sharper. Don't. The man froze, hand halfway to his pocket. Their eyes locked, one full of fury, the other calm but immovable. Claire started crying quietly. Please don't hurt anyone. Please. Keanu didn't break eye contact. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even blink, and somehow that calm terrified the man more than anger ever could. You think this is over? The man spat, taking a step back. You think you can hide her from me forever? Keanu finally moved. One small step forward, closing the distance between them. She's not hiding anymore, he said, his voice low but resolute. She's free. The words seemed to echo through the quiet bar. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. The man glared at him, breathing heavily. But for the first time there was hesitation, a crack in the mask. He backed toward the door slowly, muttering under his breath. You'll regret this. Keanu stayed still until the man finally stepped outside. Then he turned the lock once again. Claire collapsed into tears. Her hands trembled against her stomach as she whispered, He won't stop. He never stops. Keanu knelt beside her, resting a gentle hand on her shoulder. Then we don't stop either. The bystanders lowered their phones. The room was quiet again, but the tension still clung to the air like smoke. Everyone knew this wasn't finished. Outside, through the curtain of rain, the black car's headlights still glowed. Waiting. The danger hadn't left. It had only stepped back. And Keanu knew it. If you were standing there and saw this happening, would you step in or stay quiet? Share your thoughts in the comments. Minutes crawled by like hours. The rain had softened to a drizzle, but the tension still hung heavy inside the bar. Claire sat silently, hands clasped over her belly, her eyes darting to the door every few seconds. The other customers whispered among themselves, unsure whether to leave or stay. Keanu stood by the counter, motionless, eyes fixed on the foggy window. He hadn't said a word in several minutes, but his calm presence kept everyone grounded. Then came the sound no one wanted to hear. A door slam. The black car's headlights flashed again. Claire's breath caught. He's back. Keanu exhaled slowly, his expression unreadable. Stay behind me. The door flew open so violently that the bell above it cracked. The man stormed in again, this time louder, angrier, and far less rational. His shirt was soaked, his eyes wild with fury. I warned you, he shouted, pointing at Keanu. You think you can stand between me and what's mine? Keanu didn't move. She's not yours, he said quietly. Shut up. The man barked. You don't even know us. You're right, Keanu replied softly. But I don't have to know someone to see fear in their eyes. The man's face twisted. You think you're some kind of savior? Some movie hero? This is real life. Keanu's gaze remained steady. Then act like a man who understands real life, not one who destroys it. That line hit harder than any punch. For a brief second, the man faltered. but rage won again. He stepped forward and shoved Keanu hard against the counter. Phones went up again, half the bar was filming now. The tension was electric. Claire screamed, "Stop, please!" Keanu steadied himself, never raising a hand. His voice came low, controlled. "Don't do this in front of her." "Oh, your child." Those words froze him. "My child?" The man hissed. "She doesn't deserve that kid." Something in Keanu's expression shifted. For the first time, a trace of emotion flickered across his face. Disappointment, maybe sorrow. "Every child deserves peace," he said quietly. "Even if their father doesn't know how to give it." The man swung. A hard, wild punch. Keanu stepped aside, grabbed his wrist, and with a simple, effortless motion, redirected the force. No aggression, just control. The man stumbled forward, hitting the counter instead. Keanu's voice stayed calm, but his tone was firm. Iron beneath silk. "This ends now." The bar went dead silent. Only the sound of rain dripping from the man's jacket broke the stillness. Keanu slowly released his grip and took a step back. "You need to leave. Before this becomes something you regret for the rest of your life." The man looked around. The staring eyes, the phones recording, the quiet judgment pressing down on him. He took a shaky breath, muttered a curse, and backed toward the door. As he left, he shouted over his shoulder, "You'll regret crossing me, Reeves." Keanu said nothing. He simply walked over and locked the door again, his movements unhurried. Then he turned to Claire. Her face was streaked with tears, but there was relief in her eyes for the first time that night. Keanu knelt beside her, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's over. You're safe now," Claire sobbed, shaking her head. "No one's ever stood up for me before." He gave a faint smile. "Then tonight's a start." Around the bar, quiet applause began. Hesitant at first, then growing. It wasn't for a celebrity or for a fighter. It was for a man who stood his ground with decency instead of violence. Jinky and the kids weren't here tonight. But if they had been, they would have seen the same thing the crowd saw. Not a star, not a hero, but a man who chose kindness when it mattered most. Keanu helped Claire to her feet, placed his coat around her shoulders, and guided her toward the back exit. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Outside, the rain had stopped, but the world felt heavier and somehow more right. The storm had passed, but the air outside still smelled of rain and asphalt. Keanu guided Claire carefully toward his car, a modest black sedan parked behind the bar. No luxury, no fanfare, just simple, reliable. She moved slowly, her exhaustion visible in every step. When they reached the car, she hesitated. "I don't want to cause you more trouble," she murmured. Keanu opened the door for her, shaking his head lightly. "Trouble's what happens when good people look away," he said. "You didn't cause this, he did." She slid into the passenger seat, holding her belly protectively. As Keanu started the engine, his mind replayed the night's events. The fear in her eyes, the rage in the man's voice. The crowd frozen in moral conflict. He drove quietly through dimly lit streets. The city felt half asleep, like it was catching its breath after the storm. Claire's reflection in the window was soft, uncertain, but her shoulders had relaxed a little. After a few minutes, she broke the silence. "You didn't have to do that back there. You could have gotten hurt." Keanu's hand stayed steady on the wheel. "Yeah," he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. "But then I wouldn't have been able to live with myself." She turned to him, studying his face in the glow of passing streetlights. You look familiar," she said hesitantly. "Have we met before?" Keanu chuckled softly. "Maybe in another lifetime." He didn't say more, and she didn't push it. After a while, he pulled up outside a small, warm-looking building, a women's shelter tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. A soft light glowed through its windows, the kind that made you feel like safety still existed somewhere in the world. "This place can help you," Keanu said, stepping out and walking around to open her door. "They have counselors, doctors, and a bed for the night. You'll be okay here." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I don't even know how to thank you." "Don't," he said gently. "Just promise me you'll start again for you, for your baby." Inside the shelter, the staff immediately came to her aid. One of the women behind the desk, middle-aged, kind-eyed, recognized Keanu instantly. Her mouth fell open slightly. "Wait, are you—" she started. Keanu smiled softly and put a finger to his lips. "Let's just keep tonight about her, yeah?" The woman nodded in awe, tears forming in her own eyes as she helped Claire settle in. Before leaving, Keanu placed a small folded note and some cash on the counter. "For anything she needs tonight," he said quietly. As he turned to leave, Claire called out from behind him. "Wait, who are you, really?" Keanu paused at the doorway, rain still dripping from his coat. He turned just enough for her to see the gentle sincerity in his eyes. "Just someone who's had his share of storms," he said softly, "and someone who believes they don't last forever." Then he left. The next morning, the world woke up to a story that no one saw coming. Clips from the bar had gone viral overnight. Shaky phone footage showing the quiet confrontation, the pregnant woman crying, and the man standing in front of her, calm and composed. No punches thrown, no threats shouted. Just dignity, and a voice that said, "She's not hiding anymore. She's free." It spread across social media like wildfire. Headlines read, "Keanu Reeves protects pregnant woman from abuser and refuses to comment." "Kindness in silence, the night Keanu stood up without saying his name." Reporters camped outside the shelter, but Keanu was long gone. He didn't speak to anyone about it. No interviews. No press statements. Just life, quietly moving forward the same way he always did. At the shelter, Claire watched the news clip, tears streaming down her face. She whispered to the nurse beside her, "He never told me who he was." The nurse smiled. He didn't have to. That night, Keanu returned to his empty bar. He poured himself a small glass of water, looked out at the rain starting to fall again, and whispered, "Here's to second chances." He raised the glass toward the quiet, toward the universe, toward anyone still fighting to be seen, and took a sip. Outside, the world kept talking. Inside, he finally let it all go. "Do you think real heroes still exist today? The kind who help quietly without expecting recognition? Tell us what you believe in the comments." The sun rose over Los Angeles, washing the city in gold. But for once, the light felt softer, as if the world itself had taken a deep breath after a long storm. By now, every major news outlet, talk show, and social media platform was flooded with one story. Keanu Reeves helps pregnant woman escape abusive partner. Clips from that rainy night played in endless loops. The trembling footage from someone's phone. The bar's neon lights flickering in the background. Keanu's calm, unwavering stance as he protected a stranger. There were no flashy heroics, no scripted drama, just silence, compassion, and truth. The internet did what it always does. It amplified, analyzed, and dissected every frame. But this time something was different. The world wasn't mocking. It was listening. Comments poured in by the millions. He didn't do it for fame. He did it because it was right. In a world full of noise, this man's silence spoke louder than words. This is what being human looks like. The clip reached hospitals, schools, shelters, even prison cells. People who had long stopped believing in decency found a spark again. Meanwhile, Keanu stayed away from cameras. He avoided red carpets, canceled interviews, and closed the bar for a few days. He didn't need the noise, he never had. Instead, he spent his time quietly repairing a broken chair, wiping down the counter, and lighting a small candle in the corner. The same corner where Claire had sat that night, trembling and alone. Sometimes he'd catch himself glancing at that spot, a faint smile playing on his lips, remembering her whisper, "You're the only one who helped me." He didn't know what happened to her after that night. He didn't need to. It was enough to know she had found a place to rest, to heal. A few weeks later, a letter arrived at the bar. It was handwritten, sealed in a simple white envelope. Keanu opened it gently. Inside, the familiar handwriting brought an instant warmth to his chest. "Dear Keanu, I don't know if words can ever repay what you did for me that night. The shelter helped me find a new place to live. My baby is healthy, and I've decided to name her Hope. You saved 2 lives that night, mine and hers. The world may call you a hero, but I know you'd never accept that title, so I'll just say this instead. Thank you for reminding me that kindness still exists. With gratitude, Claire." Keanu folded the letter carefully, placed it inside a glass frame, and hung it behind the bar. Not for others to see, but for himself, every night after closing. He'd look at it once, take a deep breath, and smile, not because of what he did, but because someone somewhere got a second chance. Months passed. The video slowly faded from the front pages, replaced by new trends and scandals. But unlike most viral stories, this one didn't die. It lived quietly, in classrooms, sermons, and kitchen conversations. People began to help strangers again. Bar owners put up safe space signs. Communities raised funds for shelters. Artists painted murals of nameless kindness, and all of it had started with a quiet man who never raised his voice, never sought credit, just stepped forward when it mattered. One evening, while wiping down the bar, Keanu noticed a young man hesitating at the door. Nervous, lost. He looked up and smiled. "Come in. You look like you could use a seat." The man nodded and walked in slowly. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. I saw that video months ago. The one with you. It changed something in me." Keanu tilted his head, listening. "I used to walk past people in trouble," the man continued. "But last week, I didn't. There was a woman being yelled at in the street. I stepped in. She's safe now. I just wanted to say, thank you for teaching me." Keanu smiled softly, the kind of smile that said more than words ever could. He reached across the counter, offering a handshake. "Don't thank me," he said. "Just pass it on." The man nodded, eyes shining, and as he left, Keanu looked back at the framed letter, Hope, glowing faintly in the warm bar light. That night before closing, he turned off the lights, locked the door, and whispered to the empty room, maybe that's all it takes. One act, at the right time, to remind the world what being human means. Outside, the city buzzed with life again. Laughter, noise, chaos. But somewhere beneath it all, kindness was moving quietly, hand to hand, heart to heart, and in the small corner of a bar owned by a man named Keanu Reeves, a single candle kept burning, a steady, silent, eternal. Heroes aren't made on screens. They're made in the moments no one sees.